Hello and welcome back to another episode of Empower You Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Abney, and I'm just shining the light on living life a little bit more conscious, a little bit more aware. The more aware we have, the more choices we have. And I do that by having amazing, powerful, empowering conversations with folks just like human beings all around the world that are waking up. And today is no different. And we have a very special guest all of our guests are special. But I love this tapestry that we are creating because last week was Australia. Today is Zimbabwe. And we're joined by the wonderful Laurin Mariani. Thank you so much for being here on my podcast today, where we share our experience of life, how we we wake up and we start to see that life is not what we thought it was. And the little box that we were in, we're sort of outside of it. And we just have this expanded, I'll just call it evolved point of view. And there's other people and we're starting to all feel it all around the world. And I love having those conversations and sharing our stories about how we sort of got here, but more importantly, what's happening in our now every day. So welcome and thank you so much for being here. What time is it there for you?
Thank you so much, Mike. It's so good to be here. It is 9:10 in the evening.
Awesome. Well, thank you for staying up late. It's 4 o'clock or 2 o'clock where I'm at here in St. Louis.
The time difference is a bit of a snag.
And right now, it means nothing. Because we're just talking to each other. So
Indeed.
I appreciate it. And I'm dying to dive into your story. Because one other thing I want to point out is normally I have some sort of idea of what these are going to go. But technology today, I didn't get those forms. And we're here and we're intuitively know there's an amazing conversation. But we're just going to dive into it and let the universe guide us today. And I love surrendering to I don't know, right?
I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. Go ahead. Share your story with us.
So my story is, there's a whole bunch of everything and nothing really. I think we all have a story to us. There's always a trauma element that's always nice and juicy to dissect. There's always a romance element that's always nice to dissect. But what got me to where I am today was just an ugly point in my life. I always thought I was a little bit batshit. Like that was my thing is I grew up in a super Christian home, right? So if we start with that, that's its own, like...
Yes. Like, yes. Were you aware that was like... I know, by the way, we didn't have a chance to say this, but I love this just being a conversation. So it's like, I did too. Like, I grew up, like, did you have the awareness that it was kind of like not making sense at a really young age, right?
Well... So from a young age, I saw giants. And like I can communicate with them. They were part of like me, I guess. But in my world, they're physical, right? Like if you can see into another dimension, they're there. So they're part of your world. And I used to say to my mom, like, Mom, be careful, the giant's going to stand on you. Or like, and I could relate it to like an ant and a human and whatever. And everything for me had feelings. Sweets had feelings, plants had feelings. And so I remember having to say goodbye to my giant when I was about 4 years old, one of them, because it was too painful to have them around. Because at that point, it was so misunderstood. And, maybe you're seeing entities, right? Maybe there's a demon, right? And so this carried on, and then I kind of said goodbye to them. And then as a teenager, I would be in a church service and I would hear the Bible being read, but I couldn't identify it. Or identify with it rather. I had no concept over, it just didn't resonate. I was like, all I heard was hypocrisy. And one of my things is, as an intuitive, I can see into other people's lives, and I didn't know that was on or off. So I'm looking at the pastor who's beating his wife and I'm like, and we worship the same God? And so I remember, this is hilarious. I remember once my mum saying, it's enough now. And these people that you talk about being raped or violated and these voices in your head, I think you need to go and be exercised. And I remember going to the church and you know how they all lay hands on you and they were praying. And I just didn't feel any of this. And so about 2 hours in, I started laughing. And I remember so clearly the pastor saying, that's the demon coming out of her. And I was like, no, I'm just laughing because it must look so funny. And you keep switching arms because your arms are getting tired from praying it out of you. And I was like,
How old were you?
probably in my teens, probably about
Right?
15, I guess. And eventually I was like, if I don't just collapse and pretend to be taken by the Holy Spirit, like this is just going to go on for years. And so, you do what you have to do. But I guess for me, you kind of kill that intuitive part off because it's crazy, right? And you start to fear it and you start thinking, well, it's an entity, it's an entity. And I met the most incredible person. She's still with me today. And I remember saying to her, we had a conversation. I said, I just know. And she was like, oh, you're one of them. And I was like, one of who? And she was like, I need you to meet your own people. And that was when it was like, oh my God. So I came from no background. And my curiosity and integrity linked together allowed me to literally download. If I wanted to do Reiki, for example, let's just like download Reiki. Let's just download hypnotherapy. Let's just download and the alchemy behind it. Let's do a regression without emotions. Let's see if we can play with the alchemy behind being intuitive or psychic or whatever. And it just kind of progressed from that, I guess.
What were your results though when you started doing it like early on?
100%.
Like when you started playing and you knew it, right? Okay.
But I think it's a huge, so I had a conversation recently. I was with a group recently and they were asking like, and what makes you so different? And I had this, it's quite a heated conversation. We can edit if necessary. But one of the things I said is your integrity level. And there's so few people who do this line of work that have that integrity level where just because you can have something doesn't mean you should have it, right? So every time I've needed something, it's been where I've actively called that person into being to see how far I can push myself, like a trust issue, I guess, or not an issue, a moment of trust, like, oh, I can't do it, but it doesn't mean I can't do it. If I ask for it, I will receive. And that's where like Bible verses started coming back on ask and you will receive. And I was like, oh, so it's in the moment that you do that, and that's where you live that life of faith.
Wow, that's really powerful. And you got that also young.
Yeah, I guess as a kid, I used to come back from school and say to my mom, my friend is being molested or my friend is being raped. And my mom was like, I dropped you off at school. Where were you? And I was like, no, I was here.
You could just sense it.
I could see it with absolute clarity. And so I started journaling. I started writing stuff down. And so one of my like favorite things was there was a girl in high school. And I remember seeing every morning when she came to school, her dad would molest her on the way to school or, do stuff to her on the way to school. And maybe 15 years later, I held a mini workshop just for shits and giggles to see, who would come or whatever. She was there. And as soon as she came up to me, for some reason, I had that book in my hands and I was like, I want to show you something. And there was like my data entries in of what I had seen all the way back. I know, right?
What did she say?
It was insane. She just burst into tears. She was like, Laurin, I can't even tell you why I'm here. She's like, I didn't know if you had. She's like, I didn't even know if you'd remember me. As soon as I saw her, I said hello by her name, and she was like, I don't know if you'll remember me. And I was like, I want to show you something. Don't talk. And that was like kind of my way of, as every time I thought I was really crazy and what I could see, I would just write it down because ultimately it comes to pass.
How are you utilizing it now?
I created my gifts. I created programs. I was doing one-on-one consultations and it was great for a period of time, but I felt like we have the ability to get stagnant in our spiritual journey. And I'm a very why person and I question everything. And I also, I'm a seeker. And so I want to constantly be stretched spiritually and, mentally. And so for me, I created these programs, containers, that speak about soul DNA, because one of my things that I birthed was that if we have a human soul DNA, we have if we have a human DNA, we have a soul DNA. And that was just out of throwing an absolute tantrum over, what if I am a painfully shy person? Everyone keeps saying, stop being shy. What if you can't? Everyone keeps saying, stop being depressed. What if you can't? Everyone keeps saying, stop being anxious. What if you just freaking can't? And so we medicate things. We call it a chemical imbalance. We call it, there's so many programs out there that are like, change your life. Just do this. Just what if you can't was my option. I'm a pretty proactive person in my life. And yet, what if I can't? And the moment I asked that question,
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing. And so my absolute baby is soul DNA, where I teach people that we're each born with our own unique soul DNA. And the moment we embrace that and stand in that, there's the most incredible authenticity that comes through, where you're able to then say, this is who I am. I stutter, or I am anxious, or I am depressed, or I am, passionate, or I am shy, or I am whatever it may be. I mean, there's hundreds of DNA strands. And so you're able to then recognize who you are. You're then able to recognize what triggers you. Within the Soul DNA program, there's 3 categories: the good, the bad, the ugly. I couldn't think of a more original name. For my original work, I couldn't think of a better name, I'm afraid. But how the bad and the ugly only ever rear their head when you're triggered, by something, and which ultimately would lead you to the outbursts, or bipolar, or, schizophrenic, having to develop multiple personalities, or whatever it is. Irrationality is in my ugly. I go absolutely mental. And, everyone's like, you need to control your rage. What if you can't? What if you need to play that out in another dimension or another universe in its entirety? And so I guess part of my alchemy was, hey, what's the worst that could happen? And so I would, if my husband and I had a fight, he needs to die. So I'm not prepared to kill him in this universe, but I'm quite happy to do so in another one, and then dissolve that universe, because at that point, all my rage is out. It's done. And suddenly you don't find yourself holding on to stuff, and you journal it, and the next morning you wake up thinking, well, that was theatrical. But I've got a theatrical thing within my soul DNA, so why wouldn't it be anything other than that? But I certainly am not prepared to have that screaming match with him, so I've got to have it somewhere, surely, in order to be authentic.
So what happens when you let that stuff out? Like, you process it through. Like, you're not holding it in your body, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But like, when it goes out, like, do you have a sense of where it goes?
I literally create. I'm like, we can all do it. I mean, if you can imagine it, you're doing it, right? I think that's the disconnect we have, is we view 5D, as it were, as something we've got to train for, something. That's what my mission is at the moment, actually. Something called up my ass a couple of days ago, and I'm just like, this 5D thing is overrated, and we assume it's like so far away, and we've got to work there.
No, it's already here.
Yeah.
It's already here.
So if you can create it, so in my mind, I literally am like, okay, so let's just replicate this moment. And then once we've replicated this moment, let's just dissolve what we replicated. And then that's it, gone. The energy's gone. And just literally saying that, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Part of it, yes. There's an entire system that is available when we exit survival. And like, that happened to me. So it's very interesting, like what you're saying, because I have this sense, my guides tell me that there are other people like me. There's thousands of us that have had these experiences and have developed some sort of like perception. And I have something that was downloaded to me in 15 minutes after a near-death experience that was like literally a year and a half ago, and I've been on this like mission from I don't even know where to try to like get it out into the world. And like, I'm here, I'm clear that where I'm at with it right now is like, I know I'm at the end of the tunnel, and it's like I already feel like I'm living that life of it being already manifested. And
Yeah.
so the clarity's there, like all of this journey of all of these mistakes that were not mistakes at all gave me the understanding to understand what I'm looking at right now and know that the people that I have around me are the people that are supporting exactly what I'm doing, right?
Well,
And
you
getting it
called
out
them
there.
into being, right?
I actually did 3 days before they showed up because I was like, universe, I am sorry. I'm fucking done with this. I have had this a year and
Yeah.
a half
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I have
yeah,
like
yeah.
struggled. Sorry, I'm getting real.
No,
Struggled with
go.
this mission of like, you told me, like, I ask a question too. I ask a question too. How can I take this crazy awakening experience that's been going on in my life for over 20 years? Because I know people do not have 20 years now to take that and like short circuit that, like clear people as quickly as possible. And like within 15 minutes, they just told me to go sit down and I literally, the entire thing came out. It was this 9 week thing that took people from survival to thrival and like recreating
Yeah.
their
I
entire
love that,
existence
thrival.
in 9 weeks. And it was
Yeah.
called the Nine series. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
great. And I like it all manifested. You know, I got scared in it. Like I didn't know how to sell it because it was an expensive item.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, but I'm worth it. And I'm clearing somebody. It's like, it should be triple what it is. But like,
Yeah.
I'm so want to make a living out of my gift. Like I so want to
Yeah.
make a living out of my gift. Right.
Yeah.
And like wake up and just do
Absolutely.
what I love every fucking day of my life. Like
Yeah.
there's just nothing that like turns me on more than
Yeah.
that and the freedom of that. And it just got to this point where about 6 weeks, 8 weeks ago, I was like, no, I can't handle this anymore. Like, yeah, bring it down. And all of a sudden, this friggin' YouTube ad popped up, and I was like, that guy was literally talking to me. Like, this is, if you've experienced blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh my God. And what he said made so much sense. He didn't tell me how, he told me what it was. And I'm like, I knew it because I've been seeking for so long. And now
Yeah.
I feel the people waiting for it as I'm creating it. Like
Yeah.
when you step out to take the next step or level up, everything that's there rises up to meet you, like at the same
And you
space.
gotta take that step. I do a lot of stuff in temper. In anger for me is one of the most beautiful emotions and states of being because that's where complete honesty can come through and there's no filter, right? It's like you finally get to just say what you want to say. And so today I sat down being super productive at my desk and I wrote about what happens when you mix inspiration and creativity and you get momentum. And the moment you've got momentum, I know, right? And
Say
the
that
moment
again. Say that again. Say that again.
when you mix creativity and inspiration, you get momentum as a byproduct. So,
Without pushing for momentum.
no. So we constantly seek momentum. So, okay, can I just go down a rabbit hole? Do you mind?
Yes, please. Okay,
Okay,
let's put a
okay.
pin right here so we can remind ourselves where we're at
Okay.
1841. Okay, go down the rabbit hole.
Okay. So if you go down a rabbit hole and you're like, if you look at the world today, we are so fueled that we have lost all forms of creativity. If we want to know something, we Google it, or we do a course, or we check on Pinterest, or we find inspiration on social media, whatever it is. We join seminars, workshops, whatever they are. At no point do we sit with self and source and say, I want to just be more. I'm struggling in this area of my life and I don't know what to do. We don't do that anymore. And so the inspiration is, I want to get out of this place. And when you sit there long enough, suddenly all your spirit guides come through, all your answers start trickling through, multiples, and everything is a possibility. And you start feeling back into that 5D spectrum of, oh my God, I am my own limitation. And the moment you do that, you just grab onto one answer, just one answer. that came down, and suddenly, it's almost like a golden cord. And as soon as you grab that, everything in you is filled up, and that's your momentum. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to have grabbed the cord that is going to have taught you the most. And that momentum, suddenly you and I come together. Suddenly something else comes together. And that's where the alchemy can then take place within momentum. But we don't seek that. We seek momentum externally. And it is. And today I wrote about, I believe it's a physical impossibility to gain any momentum externally. The only way to gain momentum, is from source.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't
function. 100%. How do I know? I've been trying it for 1.5 years. It always backfires until, so like, just so you know, that's precisely what I do. Like, that's how I walk people through that course. Like, if you cannot connect to yourself, and I'm really upfront with people you can't even, I won't even go on that journey with the program unless we have a call that says, girl, we are going here, and we got to come up with an agreement on how we're going to communicate during this process. And if we can come to that sort of agreement, I promise you, I can get you there. But we got to be real, and I got to be able to tell you, I don't have time to like pussyfoot around that. I got to be able to just like,
with
no,
there's
the
teaspoon.
belief. We have to disrupt it. Boom, that's it right there. Boom, it just showed itself. Boom, let it go.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah.
And then we move, but it's when you connect and acknowledge that connection, it's like pouring gasoline. It just causes it to
It really
explode.
is. That's the thing.
But
And
I've never thought that before today. So thank you so much. That's a huge aha. You can't unding a bell. But that creativity and inspiration come together is momentum without us having to do a freaking thing, right? Like nothing.
It's just about
just those
showing
two
up.
things.
So that was my yesterday. I don't know what crawled up my ass yesterday, but I was like, I'm done with this hokum. And so I started up a Facebook group called Infinitely Possible. If anyone wants to join it, it is absolutely 50 shades of batshit is my intention. And it's to go down where it is infinitely possible. If you can think it, you can create it. And if you and I said we want to be the #1 podcast in the world, and this interview has to go to #1, why not? Why not?
Yes. I say it does.
Let's do it. But there isn't, tomorrow morning we wake up. Yeah, tomorrow morning we wake up and we're like, oh, I wonder if that was a level too far. 1 filter. I wonder if anyone's going to watch it. 2 filters. And so we are taught to put all of this shit in place, as opposed to just being like, no one gives a crap. It's already #1 because it's #1 to you and I. And so that's it.
This conversation is #1 for me.
It is.
Creating the space for it, and somebody, I know it's like a radio station, right? And we can tap into those because of how we're connected to the grid and the world and our universes. So that happening is that frequency, but there are other people, because of what's happening in the world, is causing them to focus in a new way and bringing on that all wonderful, uncomfortable feeling. And that just naturally does it on its own.
Yeah. And you've got to get uncomfortable.
A must. Make it a lifestyle. I used to avoid it, but going in this is great. I was in a mastermind a couple of years ago, and one of the things I took on was just running as fast as I could to everything in the universe that scared the shit out of me. And man, does that really teach you. It never stops you from being scared. It really doesn't. But you literally, it's not a stop. In fact, that's my buzzer. It's ooh, I'm really close because I'm scared shitless right now. I don't know how this thing is going to happen.
That's the thing, is be scared for all the right reasons.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a wrong reason, and if you're being authentic with yourself, within my program, there's key questions to ask yourself. Are you being lazy? Yes. Do you need to exercise? Yes. Do I want to exercise? No. Get your ass up and exercise. There is, you want this massive, breakthrough in your life with a click of a finger? No. You called your life into being.
You got to clear it all out.
But you called it into being.
Yeah.
So suck it up, figure out why those things happened, You want to be the greatest healer in the world? That's great. You're going to need to go through every single thing that makes you not a healer in order to be that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I use manifestation as my tool to raise all of those cords so that I can cut them and release them, and then you are that thing.
Yeah, and as fast as possible. I'm just like, show me. I want to find out.
Yeah. I do it all the time.
I have FOMO. What is there? So one of my things was like, in this whole Christianity thing, let's jump back into the Christian world, was I remember probably about a year or so ago, I was like, the Bible verse of we're all created in the image of God popped up for me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that is a fascinating freaking concept. And I was like, because I've never looked into that like intuitively. So I was like, if I'm made in his image, I am God.
Yeah, of course.
So I was like,
big pieces of it.
No, I was like, let's just take that one step further. And then I was like, okay, if I am God, let me harness his power. Can I tell you, I sat there and I was like, let me be God. Respectfully, let me be God. If I could put all that power in my hands, what would I do with that? If I put it into myself, what would I do with that? And if I met my next, and if I met my next client, what would my practice look like, knowing all I had to do was touch them and they healed? Would I even need to go through the process, or would I just need to stand in my power and understand that I am God, and you are God, and you are God, and you are God? And every single one of us, like, I think that is part of my thing as well. It's certainly not something I teach, but it's something I empower people. Like, for your viewers, just go and spend 10 minutes a day harnessing power from source to the app. It's abundant. It's absolutely
What
infinite.
are some of the ways that you do that in your life? Nature.
There's multiples. I don't believe there's a set thing, but like, if I have to, I find inspiration on my morning walks. Like, that is my soul time. That's where I hate exercising. I cannot tell you how much I hate exercise. And so it is my commitment to myself that I'm in it for the long run, and that if I can get up and do that, and I'm always happy once I've done it, but I believe that's my sacrifice, for wanting to be who I am. And then on the days where I won't let my feet touch the ground, when my alarm clock goes off every morning, I lie there until I'm God. Because when my feet touch the ground, I'm walking the earth and the earth must feel me. And so I lie in bed and I'm like, I feel it in my hands, I feel it in my fingers, and I will not let my feet touch the ground until I am God. Because I believe that the moment my feet touch the ground, there's an excuse, right? My coffee, my morning cigarette, I get distracted. I need to check my emails. I need to do that. And by then you've lost your essence of God. So for me, discipline is a massive part of where we are as, I don't even want to say enlightened or awakened or spiritual, as a person, as a soul. And so for me, I want to mean business by it, and I want to wake up and absolutely be a star fucking player. Like, I'm not in it for anybody else. I am incredible at what I do. I mentor hundreds of people, and that's a nice story. But for me personally, I was born to harness my own power, as are you and everybody else. And so I don't want to miss a second of that. My alarm goes off every single morning at about 4:05, and literally there's no snooze, there's no nothing. In fact, there is a snooze, I lie. So my alarm goes off, I hit the snooze, and I lie there until the next snooze, suiting myself up. I am God. I am made in his image. Can you imagine if you were to stand in God's presence or source presence? What would that look like? What would that feel like? And what would you take if you could take abundance? Would you just be like, I'll just take a little bit, thanks, because I don't want to be greedy. I'm going to be like, no. That's literally my thing in the morning. And it's about I start at my toes and I feel my whole body being energized. and I call into being everything that is for me on that day. Everything that is for me. And if there is an obstacle in that day, then that's for me as well. And so there's that understanding of, this is where I'm meant to be. This is who I am. It doesn't get any more real than this level of crazy.
I agree. I mean, I love, just really resonates. And I love, this is the whole point of this. I love being wowed by, I have a morning practice, and when my feet hit the floor, it's thank you. And so I'm just like, I love how we all have acquired these certain, they may be different in form, but the intent is the same. I always I have to, and I have a routine in the morning that grounds me into my space. For me, it's spaces. I love spaces. I love designing them or having them flow and work and aware of what's in them. Is it serving me? Is it not serving me? It's the same as my inner space. I want them to match. You can change all, like in feng shui, that's about changing the inside to affect the or changing the outside to, order for the inside. But it actually works the reverse. But some people, if the resistance is still there, they won't change the physical thing. So this has no way of wiring. But when this hooks with the outside, flow is your friend. Like flow is everywhere, and that tapping into that space.
But I think that's where creativity and inspiration, momentum is flow. I think that for me, for so many years, I had such a wrong definition of flow. I was like, is it a physical thing? Is it a spiritual thing? Is it I couldn't pinpoint, it just didn't resonate for me. And so when I realized that, flow was just understanding that every single action is already rewritten. Everything, every dollar spent, every thought already created, it's already done. So just do the first thing that comes to mind. When you are that connected to your soul, we don't need to overthink it. First thing that comes to your mind. And when I teach people, do you know, I had a lady recently that wanted to connect to trees. Mm-hmm. She believes in the souls of trees. She reads about it. She tells you that she hasn't got any gifts. And I was like, her integrity level though is insane. And so she said, I'd give anything to connect to trees. And I was like, what's stopping you? And so she said, I don't know how. So I said, I'll see you in a week's time. I said, come take a walk with me. You'll be talking to trees by the end of it. Because why the hell not? Mm-hmm. Like, it's that easy. And it's normally the first, you don't need the training. You can download it there and then. And it's the first thing that comes to your mind is 9 times out of 10, the correct thing. You just put a filter in and start second guessing yourself.
Fascinating, right? And how the level of awareness that we can cultivate and we completely can. I mean, it's our destiny to become aware. For that, for me, the space 5D is already here, whatever people call it. I call it the new Earth because it was exactly what Eckhart Tolle was writing about in that book like 20 some odd years ago. Like, if we're living it, it just looks different than what I thought it was going to look. But the reality is how amazing my body is because of that crappy stuff that happened in 2014 with all of those diagnoses and dealing with all of that stuff actually made me a healthy person.
Yeah.
And I've never felt better or younger or been able to move. I do consistently work out. It's like a habit. Yeah. I don't even think about it. I actually, I used to say that I didn't love it, but I love the result of it. And now that I've completely cleared. So
you wonder if it's worth, if you can just click and get rid of it now that it's served its purpose.
What's your, give me your, because I can sense you're picking up on things. So
Sorry.
What are you picking up on? No. I love it. Don't hold back. Express, but I can sense that you're picking up on something. So share.
So if we go to infinitely possible. Okay, very out the box here.
Let's go.
We're in infinitely possible. What if you're the first person ever to heal that? Ever. So I have a practice, that I go to bed with every night where I thank my body for what I've put it through for the day. because I work my body pretty hard. And so I give it permission to regenerate back to source.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets to start off brand spanking new tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do the same thing with my mind. And I'm like, all the bullshit for the day, be gone.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that is pertinent to my day, please stick with me until tomorrow. And if it's still available tomorrow, let's discuss it. And then I tell my soul, go do what you need to do to make magic happen in my life. And report back to me.
You.
And then report back to me at 4:00 tomorrow morning. And my soul normally comes back and is like, right, this, and this. When you listen to people that identify with trauma, and that's their sad story. Oh, I was raped, I was sexually abused, I was beaten, I was this. And I always laugh. And I think, and then you'll sit and look at me and think I'm that perfect person. I've been through all of the above.
Yeah, me too.
You don't see me crying about it. Yeah, you don't see me crying about it or identifying with it and like, hi, my name's Laura. I just want to let you know. You asked me my story. I don't care. Like, yeah. That's not your story. I want to know what your soul story is. And maybe that's a narrative that people need to be digging up. What's your soul story? Because ultimately your soul called all of this crap into being to make you who you are. And so at that point, why are we identifying with the human version of ourselves that is, I don't know, a dud?
Yeah. Well, I love this conversation so much. I love that we talked about some stuff.
So glad I didn't fill out a form.
I'm so glad you didn't fill out a form either, because it was just kind of perfect. I know we provided a lot of context for maybe viewers like us that are in that space of like, oh wow, yeah, that is happening to me, and I'm in this very stage of whatever it is. But by us sharing our stories helps other people like get to the next space, and like the fact that I know that I'm not alone anymore is just amazing, because like that isolation space was extraordinary.
It's a horrible place to be in.
It's a horrible place, but I was there for a really long time, so I know a lot of us were. And that whole, it's like the whole coming out process all over again. It's just, but you know what? I've mastered that shit. So I know how to come out. It is.
And the thing is like, I think when you ask about harnessing your power, the consequences are the consequences. I think for me, I encourage people always just to live life authentically. You're going to lose the people that are meant to be lost regardless. So you can do it today or you can do it in 10 years. Because the longer you keep dying to your authenticity and the longer you keep dying to self in order to people please, for what? Like, just be you. Just be you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoever's meant to fit in and, will fit in. Whoever's not will fuck off.
Yeah. I'm in the second category. I never could fit in. And God, I tried for so many years, but it was like, nope, not supposed to. But
yeah.
That said, what's your takeaway from today?
Just never plan anything. Sometimes I think we overcomplicate stuff.
Yeah.
When you bring creativity and inspiration, momentum.
Well, that's beautiful, because after I get done today, I'm going down to the country and just having, I have 3 hours that I have a passion project. It's actually editing these videos, because I have like 30 of them I have to edit, but they're so passionate. It's just like, this will be my space that I don't have anything else to, I can just be outside in nature, and it's all love. This is all 100% love for me.
Yeah.
And I thank you so much for sharing your love and bringing your batshit crazy and you're out of the box. The world just needs all batshit crazy right now, because the other looks pretty batshit crazy to me as well. So pick your poison. I choose
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a blessing to speak with you. Thank you so much. And thank you for being a part of this podcast. Hold tight as I sign off, and then I'll see you on the other side of this. But thank you for being here today, Laurin. I really appreciate it. I'll put all your information in the description box below. You guys listening at home, or on the podcast itself, I appreciate you guys for listening or watching, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I sure did. It was amazing. I feel like I have a new friend in Zimbabwe, and like connecting to that global community, because you're not crazy. We just were living in a crazy space and time. And now that's over. All we got to do is learn to live in the new one. And there's tons of folks ready to help and share and love and grow so that we all become clear to live our life and move in the direction of what it's calling us to be. That's my mission. And just shine a little bit of light on that today. Hope you enjoyed. Love you. And see you on the next one. Bye, guys.